Todd has asked me to make a few remarks in his Does God Care with the theme Feeling Helpless, based on Habakkuk 1, 2 through 11. And he really has asked me to answer three questions with some of my own experiences. The first one being, what darkness have you been led through? Two, what hope have you been given? And then three, what hope would you challenge all of us with? Darknesses over all the years, there are a lot of them. I guess the one I focused on most of all was Vietnam. And Vietnam is an illustration of that darkness can be a protracted thing in one's life. You can't say it really lasted just a year because I've experienced some post-traumatic stress syndrome, etc. And so there can be whole chapters of your life that are dark. Now, most recently, just 3 weeks ago, my wife's cousin, Sam Cochran, over in Memphis, he experienced a sudden darkness of his daughter dying. And she was 42 years old, had a number of health problems, but then just one night at the top of the stairs shouted, "I can't breathe." He, being a professional, a retired policeman, tried to resuscitate her, but he died. She died right there in their bed. Couldn't breathe. And that was a shock to all of them, and that's an immediate darkness that we can identify with within our family. Now, how do you deal with all this? I think there are maybe one, two, three things that I could recommend to you. One is, what hope have we been given? You got to realize that not many people are going to give us much hope. We live in a pretty dramatic world. The pandemics, the, you know, all the protests we have and rioting, etc. You can watch the evening news and come away from it with very little hope for anything for the future of this world. So we have all these messages. Is God dead? I remember we had one of our pilots on a squadron was shot down when I was in Vietnam. We had a classic memorial service for him, and the chaplain preached on God is dead. And I'm going like, that's not giving people that are flying combat every day much hope. So one of the alternatives is you don't have much hope. And you got to kind of fight that. And two ways I would fight it is, number two, is there's always a tomorrow. Now today might look awfully bleak. 3 weeks ago at the funeral, the visitation, Samantha, just a beautiful 42-year-old young lady, just, you couldn't imagine that she was dead. And now it's 3 weeks. They're going to Murfreesboro to clean out her apartment today. In fact, that's going to be hard on them. But there's always another tomorrow. And one of the things when we look at it tomorrow is that other people have been through similar things and they've made it. I remember when I went to pilot training, I'm going like, how in the world am I going to fly one of these high-performance jet aircraft? And then I looked at the pilot training class ahead of me, and knowing some of the guys that were in the pilot training class, I'm going like, well, if they can do it, I can. And at this point in time in my life, as an 81-year-old, married to an 84-year-old, we've had some friends lately that have lost their spouses, and I go like, well, I guess if they can see their way through it with their faith that they have, I have at least that much faith and can see my way through it too. The third one, and this ties in really with what challenge would I give you, is heaven. Now, when you're young, you don't think that much about heaven. Of course, Samantha is in heaven now as a 42-year-old, but I'm thinking more and more about heaven as I'm an 81-year-old. Now, one of the books I might recommend to you is a book called 90 Minutes in Heaven. It's about, of course, the church doesn't really talk a lot about heaven. We're kind of looking at, well, you don't go to Sunday morning, Sunday nights, and Wednesday. You don't go to all three, so maybe you're not going to go to heaven. Or maybe you haven't identified at a congregation. Maybe you're not going to go to heaven. We never talk a lot positively about what heaven is like. Well, this was a youth minister in the Baptist church, okay, but he was pronounced dead at an automobile accident, and they came back an hour and a half later, and they noted he had a pulse. And they revived him an hour and a half later. But he talks about his experience over that hour and a half. It wasn't just a near-death experience where he saw a bright light. He actually went to heaven. You need to read the book because it was it was just an experience that we all need to look forward to. And I find that in situations like with Samantha, if I can get across to her parents that not just this kind of cliche, well, she's in a better place, she is in a wonderful place. And that's waiting for all of us. That's the ultimate hope that we have. Oh, you may have a hope that you'll be able to take an exam over again. You may have a hope that you'll get a better job and get a better promotion. But the ultimate hope is that hope in heaven. And we need to think more and more about that in our lives so we keep ourselves pointed in the right direction in how we live.